I'm going to show you how to pay off your debt in the best fashion possible. I promise you that. This has helped my clients collectively pay off $4 million in debt in creating individual case studies like Chris, who paid off $12,500 in credit card debt in just 7 months. Marissa, who paid off $50,000 in credit card debt in 13 months. An amazing couple that I was honored to work with who after 2 years were completely debt-free.
Hi, I'm Justin Buonomo, and this is Wisdom is Wealth. Wisdom is Wealth is designed to give you guys practical insights, modern strategies, and even timeless philosophies around gaining wisdom in your life. The wiser we get, the wealthier we will become. This podcast really is inspired by the book of Proverbs in the Bible, which was written by King Solomon, who prayed to God for wisdom and as a byproduct became the wealthiest person to ever live. If he was still alive today in present day, he'd be worth $1.3 trillion with a T. Not because he prayed for wealth, but he prayed to God to give him wisdom. And as he grew wiser, as a byproduct, he grew wealthier, particularly financially, but not just stopping there, in every facet of his life. And in my own life, I have realized that the wealthier I become, it's truthfully just because I have become wiser in life. I'm gonna bring on guests that are incredibly successful, incredibly amazing human beings, and have an amazing financial wealth that they've grown for themselves. And they're gonna share wisdom on their life experience in totality in hopes that something becomes valuable for you to implement in your process, in your life, and in your journey, and see how wisdom truthfully is wealth. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Wisdom is Wealth. I'm going to show you how to pay off your debt in the best fashion possible. I promise you that. This has helped my clients collectively pay off $4 million in debt in creating individual case studies like Chris, who paid off $12,500 in credit card debt in just 7 months. Marissa, who paid off $50,000 in credit card debt in 13 months. An amazing couple that I was honored to work with who after 2 years were completely debt-free. And so the first thing to understand is what debt to attack first, second, and maybe what debt to leave alone. And so here's how we're gonna do this. Right, number one, I'm gonna break down the difference between good debt and bad debt because not all debt is bad. And so good debt is leveraging other people's money at a low cost or no cost to increase your value, your wealth, and your opportunities. Not exactly what this video is about. It's more so about bad debt, identifying it and creating a payoff strategy for it that is most optimal for you and your family. And so bad debt is buying things that we don't need with money that we don't have at a high interest rate with no plan on how to pay it off. And a lot of people would label credit card debt, right, as that. Just swiping the card and saying, I'm going to figure it out later. No shame in that. I've been there, but that is a form of bad debt, if not bad debt in totality. And so as we go through this, right, and you're thinking of your own debt, you're going to want to think about, okay, what debts make most sense for me to attack first, right? So bad debt, okay, let's attack that first. And so really bad debt, as mentioned before, is buying things you don't need at a high interest rate, right? What is a high interest rate? It kind of depends on the time, as you're watching this based on the economy and the stock market and where interest rates are at. It also depends on your risk tolerance, right? If you're very conservative, some people would say that anything higher than 10% is a high interest rate, right? If you are maybe moderately conservative, you might be around 12%. And if you are a little bit more aggressive for certain reasons or another, then it might be around 15%, right? Where once it gets to 15%, 12%, or 10% or higher, that to you and your unique situation and preferences is high interest debt for you. So let's just err on the side of caution here and just say, okay, any debts that are higher than 10%, right, would be a high interest debt. And so I say high interest debt because, what I mean by that is if you pay off that debt, you'll save the 10%. You'll save the 15%, you'll save the 12%, the 20%, whatever the interest rate is. And while there is worse things than you can do with your money than paying off your student loans that are 5%, paying off your mortgage faster that's 7%, or paying off your car loan faster that's 6%, or maybe even trying to avoid those things in the first place, you have to ask yourself, though that's not a bad use of your money, is it the best use of your money? So I'll give you one example. Let's just say that your interest rate on your student loans is 7%, right?
Well, again, you can pay that off and guarantee save yourself 7%. But the faster that you pay it off, the more 7% or the interest rate that you'll save, right? But is that the best use of your funds? So for example, let's just say it's on a 20-year duration, right? The loan term is 20 years for your student loans. We have to ask ourselves, is there a better use of those funds over the 20 years that can beat that 7%? So think about the stock market. The stock market, on average, gets about 10% return on investment over the past 25 years, right? So while, yeah, you could pay your student loans down faster and save 10%, it might be a better use of your funds to invest it in the stock market and make 10%, right? You see what I'm saying? Like 10% is greater than 7%. So the idea is asking yourself, before you go pay off debts, particularly ones that are less than 10%, are not being categorized here as high interest debts, you're gonna ask yourself, is that the best use of your funds, or can you beat that interest rate somewhere else? Right? Is there a different debt that you can pay off that has a higher interest rate or that's costing you more money or hurting you more? Or is there an investment or a move that you can make when it comes to utilizing your funds that way instead of paying off the debt just to try to avoid debt like the plague and get away from it by any means? Again, there's worse things you can do with your money. I just want to challenge you with the question, ask yourself, is this the best use of my funds, especially if it's not a high interest debt? All right. And so the next thing you want to figure out here is understanding which debts are costing you the most and hurting you the most. Let me break that down here for you. Costing you, right, is going to be based on the balance and the interest rate, right? A lot of people just think that it's the highest interest rate is the one that I should attack first. Well, that may be right in some scenarios. There's other scenarios where that could be wrong, right? Let me give you an example. It's not necessarily the highest interest rate. It's the one costing you the most interest. And so let me give you an example here. Let's say that you have two different credit cards. Credit card A has a $2,000 balance at a 25% interest rate, right? So 2,000 times 25% equals $500, right? It's how much that one's costing you. Just an easy equation to figure that out. So that's 25%. Keep that in mind. That's the interest rate. Right. Then you've got a second credit card B, that's a $10,000 balance, but it's only 15% interest. If you were operating off of the mentality, I have to attack the highest interest rate first, you would pay off credit card A first because it's 25% interest compared to 15. But instead, you need to operate off of which one's costing you the most by running that equation that I just taught you. So 2,000 times 25% equals 500. Let's do it with the credit card B, the next one. 10,000 times 15% equals 1,500. So while it's 10% or cheaper interest, right, via the rate on credit card B, 15% of 10,000 is a heck of a lot more than 25% of 2,000. So that's the number one thing you have to figure out here is which one is costing you the most by running this equation. And it may necessarily not be the one with the highest interest rate. I hope that makes sense. So that's costing you the most. Now let's talk through which one's hurting you the most. And by hurting you the most, I more so mean your credit score. And so on your credit score, you either have consumer debt or you have installment loans, right? Consumer debt are credit cards a lot of times, right? And the higher the balances on your credit cards or your consumer debt, the more it's hurting your credit score or the lower your credit score is. Compared to installment loans, which are like student loans, car loans, mortgages, personal loans, right? Those are actually better for your credit score. For one, they're considered good debt a lot of times from like a credit reporting standpoint, where every time you make the payment, it actually increases your credit score because it's increasing your borrowing credibility, which is just showing that you can borrow money from a lender and pay it back responsibly over time, right? Also, just installment debt usually a lot of times is looked at as better forms of debt because it's taken out for things that are needed most times, like a car, education, a home, compared to the assumption is if you have credit card debt, you bought things that you didn't need, right? And so let's just say you have a $10,000 personal loan maxed out, or let me just be a little bit easier, a $10,000 student loan maxed out compared to a $10,000 credit card maxed out. Though both are the same balance and they're both maxed out, the student loan would hurt you a heck of a lot less because it's considered an installment loan, which is a good form of debt on your credit report compared to a consumer debt like a credit card, which is considered a bad form of debt on your credit report. And so, point being, credit cards are probably hurting you the most, especially if they're maxed out. So now that you understand how to figure out which ones are costing you the most, and how to figure out which ones are hurting you the most, particularly from a credit score standpoint, now we have to figure out, okay, how do we actually pay these things off? Once you've picked which one you want to pay off first, based off the guidance that I just gave you, now you have to ask yourself, okay, how do I pay these off? Right, and there's two options, either your funds or OPM, other people's money or other people's funds. And so let's talk through that. The simplest, easiest way to utilize your funds would be to go through your budget and ask yourself, what are your monthly profits or what's your leftover money each month after expenses? And if you have to sacrifice strategically here as you're going through your budget to find extra dollars to go towards this goal, which is to pay off your debt, save you a bunch of stress, save you a bunch of anxiety, missed opportunities, and a whole bunch of money in the process, and enhance your credit score, that's when sacrifice usually is necessary. I always say at my company, we'll never tell you to sacrifice out of scarcity, right? Only out of strategy. And so point being, go through your budget. After, let's just say you make $6,000 a month. After you cut some things out strategically, you spend about $5,000 a month and you've got $1,000 left over, right? We want to throw that $1,000 at your credit card debt. So we have to figure out how much you have left over each month to put towards this goal or to put towards the debt that, based off the guidance above, you chose to attack first. And so for an easy example here, let's just say that you have $10,000 in credit card debt at a 25% interest rate, and you've got $1,000 to throw at it each month. That would take you about 12 months to pay off, and you'd pay an additional $1,400 in interest on top of the $10,000 of the initial balance, right? How I know that is because there's this amazing tool that I use and we use with all of our clients from Credit Karma, which is the website name. Some of you may be familiar with it. They've got a debt repayment calculator that if you just Google it, pull it up, it's so easy to use, where you can plug in the amount of debt you have, the interest rate that it's at, and then also the monthly payment that we just told you how to figure out, how to decide how much you can throw towards your credit card debt each month by going through your budget and figuring out what's left over, maybe even after a little bit of strategic sacrifice. You can plug that in. So balance, interest rate, how much you can pay each month, hit calculate, and it'll show you how long it'll take you to pay and how much interest you'd pay in the process. And if you want to mess around with those numbers by maybe decreasing the monthly payment, increasing the monthly payment, and so on, to see what that would do to the duration that it would take you to pay off and the interest rate, it's super easy calculator to use. And so that would be the first way. Like if you're thinking about using your own funds, how much money do you have left over each month after your expenses to throw towards this goal? And can we strategically make more funds in your budget by cutting things out strategically to utilize for this goal in the short term? The next opportunity to use your own funds is to borrow from yourself. An easy way to do this, if you have a savings account. You got a savings account for $20K, then you have $10K in credit card debt, and that money's making no money in that savings account. It could be a good thought for you and or you and your family to think about taking $10K from the savings account, using it to pay off the credit card debt to save you that 25% interest, to help your credit score bounce back, and maybe even free that card up again to utilize responsibly moving forward, right? Then creating a plan, instead of taking the $1,000 monthly profit to throw at the credit card debt, you could take the $1,000 monthly profit and pay the $10,000 back for the next 10 months to rebuild your savings account. So that's the easiest, most self-explanatory way. If that's not a possibility for you, if you don't want to do that, there's two other ways that I'll educate you on here that you have to understand. Like, before you do this, you have to consult a professional, right? This is just education. I'm not advising you to go do this because I don't know everything about your unique situation to feel comfortable advising each individual to do this before. I know everything about your situation, but these are good strategies that some of our clients use. The first one is borrowing against your 401k. And before you click out of this, I'm not telling you to drain your retirement fund, right? There's a difference between borrowing and withdrawing. Withdrawing is, kind of a no-no a lot of times, unless it's an emergency. It costs you a bunch of penalties, fees, and taxes. Borrowing is a great strategy to utilize strategically through good counsel, right, to be able to borrow from basically your money. You've worked hard to save your money in that 401k, right? And you can borrow against that. No hard pull on your credit score, doesn't show up on your credit report, and there's no application. It's your money to borrow. And so if your institution that you have your 401k with allows this, you can call them and say, hey, I want to borrow $10,000 from my 401k and pay it back over the next 5 years. What's going to happen is a payment's going to come out of your paycheck each month, right, to pay that back. And it's going to be about 5% interest that you pay. The cool part is almost 100% of that 5% interest is going to go back into your account, right? This is how they help you kind of make up for some lost time, because when you borrow against it, you're kind of, you're basically not making as much money as you could off of the retirement account compared to if you didn't borrow against it. But a lot of times, even the lost funds and the 5% interest is a heck of a lot more interest and or lost funds compared to the amount of money or interest that you're paying on this credit card debt, right? And also losing out on because your credit score is all banged up. So you're getting higher interest rates on your mortgage, higher interest rates on your card payments, right? Or just not being able to access those opportunities in the first place. Right? And so when I give people, financial education and these opportunities, I always say, like, the question isn't whether there is risk. There's always risk. The question is, do the rewards outweigh the risk for you to take this on? And are you aware of the risk, and can you mitigate it to the best of your ability? And so point being is, if you have a 401k, you can borrow against it, borrow your own money, pay yourself back with interest at much cheaper interest compared to what you're going to take the funds to utilize it for, right? To pay off the credit card debt, save yourself interest, enhance your credit score, open up better opportunities for you and your family, and decrease your stress and anxiety. And so a beautiful part about this is it's cheaper interest. It's going to most likely be a cheaper monthly payment to pay this 401k loan back compared to what you're paying in credit card debt right now. And then also it's going to be way better on your credit report because this doesn't show up on your credit report. And so you're going to take the money, wipe the balance out. The balance is going to go down, decrease drastically, if not to zero on your credit cards, aka your bad debt. And your credit score about 30 days later is going to shoot up because of that. So that's just one strategic example. Again, consult a professional before actually implementing it to make sure it's in your best interest. The other way is if you own a home, to borrow against your equity. So you can open up a HELOC, which is a home equity line of credit, or take out a home equity loan. Those are two ways to access the equity in your home. And in a way, it's borrowing money from yourself again, right? And depending on the times, the interest rate can be anywhere from 5 to 12%. But again, it's much cheaper than the interest rate on the credit card debt that you're paying. And also, it's a much better form of debt as well. And the monthly payment, again, most likely will be a lot cheaper than the monthly payment on your credit card debt. So it's better for your credit score. It's going to save you a bunch of money in interest. It's going to actually increase your cash flow because instead of making $500 monthly payments to, the credit cards, you're going to make a $100 monthly payment to the HELOC, right? So you got $400 back in your budget each month. And so just a couple of strategic ways that if you don't have money in savings, that you can borrow money from yourself. Yes, a little risk. Yes, a little interest rate. But the point is most times the rewards outweigh the risk compared to, the credit card debt that you're going to pay off with these funds. And so that's just a couple of ways to leverage your own funds, your monthly profits, your savings accounts, or maybe borrowing the money from yourself through one of these strategic pieces of advice that I gave. The last thing here is just OPM, other people's money, right? And so what I mean by that is there's a lot of credit cards out there that are called 0% APR balance transfer credit cards, which will allow you to transfer the balance from one of your interest-bearing cards over to a credit card that has a promotional period from anywhere from 12 months to 21 months, depending on the credit card, right? And what stipulations they're offering, that would be interest-free. There's a small fee to transfer the balance from the interest-bearing card to the balance transfer card, but it's way less than the monthly interest that you're going to pay to keep it on the interest-bearing credit card. And so Google 0% APR balance transfer credit cards, and you'll see some are 12 months, some are 15 months, some are even 21 months. And what that allows you to do is it allows you to obviously transfer the balance over to the new card, but it's 0% interest compared to 25% interest. Obviously, it's only for a temporary period of time, like 12 months, 15 months, etc., which will say it right on the application and in the fine print. But the point is that if a big issue with paying off credit card debt is that like the minimum payment that you're making is barely even matching the interest that's just being added on each month. So you can't even really get ahead. This stops the interest for, let's say, 15 months. So it makes it more manageable, easier, and less stressful and costly to pay off. So one strategy to utilize, but utilize responsibly. Last thing is personal loans. A lot of great personal loans out there. One of our clients just got a $50,000 personal loan at 8% to pay off his $50,000 in credit card debt that was at 28%, right? So better form of debt because it's an installment loan compared to consumer debt, and way cheaper interest, cheaper monthly payment, and just all around a better decision. But as mentioned, please consult a professional before implementing any of these. And so lastly, before we move on though, just stop using the interest-bearing credit card debt if you can while trying to pay it down to make it easier to pay off by not blending old debt and new debt. Like if you're paying off $1,000 a month, but then putting another $1,000 on there, we're not getting anywhere, right? So if you can, please try using it. Don't close it, right? Especially, obviously you can't close it until you pay it off. But even after, by the way, even after you pay it off, don't close the credit card. A lot of people do that because I don't want to get myself in trouble again. It's like, don't do that. Closing the card most times will hurt you a heck of a lot more than it will help you, because maybe a topic for a different video, but the more credit availability that you have, the better. And the older your credit age, the better. And so a lot of times those credit cards are a couple of years old, making your credit age older. Once you get rid of that card, if you close it, you lose that credit age and that history. Also, you lose the availability or the limits that you have in your name in totality, which hurts your credit score a ton. So if you have to, give it to a friend, put it in a safe box, set it aside, bury it in the backyard, but don't close it if you don't have to. All right. So I hope this was helpful, but take some type of action after hearing this, even if it is just subscribing to my channel so you can get notified every time I post a video and just stay on top of your financial education. Also, if you don't mind, share this video with someone you think it would help. Before I started recording this video, I spent time in the Word and I was reading Matthew 14 about how Jesus fed the 5,000. And so reading that, he put a goal on my heart for this video to get 5,000 views. Imagine how much debt would be paid off, stress would be saved, and interest would be saved if 5,000 people watched this video. And so I would beyond help you. I'd love your help with that by sharing this with anybody or any platforms that you have. As always, as we wrap up here, I just hope that this episode was valuable for you. If you know somebody that would benefit from it, please share it with them, and we'll see you in the next episode.